Hey everybody, so here's another video for you, and today I wanted to talk about my experience going and seeing a Kabuki show. So today I caught a ride with some other foreign people, and we went over to Fukuoka to the Hakataza Theater. It's kind of a funny. I've walked past this building several times. It is literally basically right next to the Asian Art Museum in Fukuoka, where I've been a couple of times, and I never really paid that much attention to this place. Nor did I notice that there was literally a subway stop right beside the theater. So that'll make things getting around the next time I go to visit Fukuoka quite a bit easier. Anyway, so we went there and we were able to get what are called like special foreigner tickets, which are basically $20 less than what most people pay. Looks like most of the tickets for this show were going for roughly in the neighborhood of like $90 to $100 a pop. So I kind of broke out my blazer and put on a nice shirt and pants and all that to go there. Other people there, I mean, everybody was dressed nice, but I was kind of expecting people to be wearing like suits and ties and stuff. Were quite a few ladies in kimonos, but you know, formal events here in Japan, that's not especially unusual. So they gave us when we got our foreigner tickets, they gave us some of these cards, which are really just explaining the rules for buying the tickets, and also showing you some of the Kabuki actors. This blue one is from a later performance that I didn't go to. These guys were part of one of the plays I did see. You got to see two plays. Both of them were like around about 2 hours or so, hour and a half, 2 hours. And then there was like a 30-minute intermission. Interestingly, like a lot of the people there would like eat the box lunches, bentos, in their seats at in the theater itself, but you weren't supposed to eat during the actual performance, which I thought was a little weird. But that's just kind of how these sort of things go. They also had like a little shopping area out in the theater, and they did sell things like pictures of the actors and you know, some Kabuki themed decorations. But there's also other stuff like sweaters and like handbags and dresses, and like nothing particularly connected to Kabuki either. It's just sort of like, most of it was women's clothes too, but just sort of like, you know, stuff you would expect to see in like a boutique, but it's here in the sort of I guess I don't know. You can't exactly say lobby, but they're like this little shopping area that's connected to the theater. And I just found that really bizarre. Just like, yeah, you know, you go to the Kabuki show and you know, if during the intermission you can go and buy a sweater. Yeah, it's just one of those things you just never really expect. They did also give us this paper here. Part of it just sort of explains the rules for buying the tickets, because again, the foreigners, you can get a discount. Tells you the names of some of the actors, and then it also gives kind of a plot description of the plays. Whoever came up with these was not exactly fantastic with English, but you can more or less get the gist of the story. Well, except for the last one, where it literally, the story says, ends like, he overtakes Osome and then it literally trails off. There are ellipses. So they never actually finished explaining the story of the second play in the play guide for the foreigners. And it's just basically, I mean, there's only a little bit of the story left, most of which is dedicated to a, well, it's technically a fight, but it really looks like it's basically a dance number with like this seamstress fighting these guys with umbrellas. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Um, but anyway, the first story I watched was called Isho in Jinkan, which translates as the foreign settlement in Satsuma, which is basically it's set in the city of Kagoshima, which is incidentally where I visited last month. So they kind of mix like old 18th hundreds Japanese with some of the local dialect, which is made the play even more difficult to understand. Although, kind of once I settled in, I could understand bits of it here and there. And kind of one of the nice things is that Sakurajima, one of the places that I visited, is actually kind of an important element of the story here. And another interesting thing about this particular one is one of the characters in the actual Kabuki play is meant to be a British guy named Harrison. So they actually had the actor like speak a little bit of English, like there were like four times where somebody spoke English. One time, really, because it completely floored me the first time he did it. He said in English, "We have problem," not "We have a problem." I'd kind of be curious to see whether or not the missing A was in the script or if the actor just slipped up a little bit there. But, this play was not written by someone who is a native English speaker, so I'm certainly not going to hold a small mistake like that against them. It's just anybody speaking even a single word of English in a Kabuki play is just like so utterly unexpected. And then later on, the same character said, like, in English, "Do you understand?" Which, again, that just sort of being like such an enormous contrast to what you expect, um, made the situation more than a little amusing. The story itself, I thought it was all right. The acting was kind of interesting. It's also a very sort of old style, very over the top, and it kind of interesting. It sort of really bounced between sort of being comedy and then also being some drama. And another thing is that if you ever watch like Japanese live action dramas, particularly like stuff set in olden samurai times, the sort of skull caps they wear to sort of show those old style hairstyles, they, to put it bluntly, generally look like complete and utter crap. I mean, that these are skull caps is so painfully obvious. I mean, that it's almost laughable. But this is just how it is in Japanese drama. That they like you would never be able to get away with this in an American drama. I mean, unless it was like something ridiculously low budget. I mean, it literally looks like something. It literally looks like it's just barely like a step from that old Land of the Lost TV show. But that's just kind of these really obvious skull caps are just kind of the thing here, and people just sort of accept it. But of course, to me, this is just so obvious that it's kind of hilarious. Um, but again, they also kind of go for an older style, very over the top acting at times. Which I mean, in some situations it worked because they were kind of playing things for comedy. But there's this other thing where a guy gets like stabbed in the stomach and then slashed across the back with a sword, and then he spends like what seems like the better part of half an hour dying. And he's not just like laying there on the ground, he's like yelling at like people in his family and people that he cares about. It's like, no, 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 you have to go and you have to do this thing that's important. I mean, I'd have to explain the story of the plot, but basically, like the last moments of his life are spent telling the people he loves the most, like, just leave me and go and do these things, like other things in your life that are important. Go visit Europe and study, and like go marry this guy, even though we're in love. And then he sort of picks himself up, stumbles outside of his house, and then stabs himself in the stomach with a sword and dies. I mean, there's more to the story than that. I mean, like I said, it's actually not a bad story, but it's just sort of like, wow, this guy certainly took his time dying. But again, I mean, this is a story from the 1800s. So people had different expectations then. Um, there's the other play. The second play was called. Let me see here. Osome no Nanakyaku. And this was really kind of more what I was expecting from a kabuki play. Lots of people in the white makeup and some of the really intense looking facial makeup. And they had basically what were like the most amazing kimonos I have ever seen in my life. You got to understand, in Japan, kimonos can be serious business. I mean, there are kimonos out there that cost literally more than $10,000. And I don't know how much the ones I was looking at on that stage were worth, but they had to have been worth big, big money. I mean, these things just pop. They were like, there's one that was absolutely amazing red. There's another one that was just like the most coolest purple ever. Another one that had to have a couple of $1,000 worth of gold thread. I mean, the shoulder pads on the ones for the guys were pretty intense, but even so, I mean, I'm not like a costume sort of person, but I couldn't help but look at these things and go like, oh my God, those are just utterly amazing. I've never ever seen any piece of clothing so well made and just so stunning. And then they told this really convoluted story that bounced between being a drama and being a comedy. And there's stuff like, murdering a guy and so that you can like basically steal a sword, and then like some guy accidentally eating pufferfish and being mistaken for dead, and then some people trying to use his unconscious body to extort money from a pawn shop, and then there's a monkey trainer, and a seamstress gets into a fight with a bunch of guys with umbrellas. I mean, particularly the translation of the story from here was like especially confusing. And this is one where they were really laying on the old style Japanese here. I think the story was set in like the early 19th century, like around 1813, I think, or something like that, maybe even earlier. So I had a heck of a time understanding what people were saying at the time, at times. And the story itself was, like I said, kind of confusing. But they had amazing costumes, and one of the actors plays 7 different characters. And a big part of this thing is that he, in the span of just seconds, will change from one character to another. And after a while, you can kind of start picking out some of the tricks that they're using to make this possible. But nonetheless, it remains extremely impressive. Excuse me. And with even though it was a little difficult to understand with what I could pencil out from the script and just what I could understand, I was able to get the gist of certain moments, and even then, I was able to kind of even laugh at a few of the things the characters said in Japanese because it was genuinely funny. But yeah, this is definitely a little bit more on the bizarre side. But there's just like so much of what you think of traditionally with kabuki. You had like these like guys who are almost like a miniature chorus, and there's these people playing the shamisen, which is sort of like an old style Japanese lute, would be a simple way to put it. I mean, there's just like so much going on in the span of 2 hours. It's sort of hard to put it all out there. Never mind that there's this really kind of confusing story that was still pretty fun to watch, even though like 2 hours without an intermission was a little much, especially because the seats are designed for people who are smaller than me, so my legs were starting to get a little cramped. Um, At the end of the day, though, I did have quite a good time. It was really something worth trying. I don't think I'm going to be attending Kabuki performances too regularly, but I'm really glad that I did do it this one time. And it's certainly a very interesting side of Japanese culture that, even though it's a little expensive, it's definitely worth giving it a try once just to see something like this. It's something just really, really utterly unique at the end of the day. So, guys, I'm going to end it here. Until next time, take care.